quite sure what that means, you might want to listen in, because this has everything to do with how you heal, how you heal yourself, and then we'll wait for a couple people to join on Facebook too. But this is going to be a good discussion. I'm so glad that you thought of this one, Jazz.
I think it's because I'm doing a lot of detaching myself.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're going through it, it's easier to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, awesome. And I know we'll have some people be joining on Facebook, so let's give it a minute.
Yes, please. Yeah. And then I'm gonna plug something in to see if that helps you better. Mm-hmm. Okay. A little bit better. Hi, everybody. I'm getting excited now. Okay.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. All right, so thank you to everyone who is joining right now or on the replay. Okay, this is live on Facebook. My Facebook and YouTube, Jazmine's going to be sharing this on her page too if you follow her. Hello, thank you for joining, and also on Instagram. So this will be on my IGTV as well. So that way, if you end up watching the replay later, you'll have all of it. Okay, because we're going to be talking about a really awesome subject, really great subject on attachment. So kind of wondering too, like who out there even knows what we're referring to. Good morning, Ryan, or good afternoon, Ryan. It's 12 o'clock. That's right. Okay. All right, awesome. So Jazmine, how would you define it? I guess I mean, we'll probably have very similar definitions of attachment, but wondering how you would describe it, or like even in relation to your clients.
So honestly, for me, I like to keep things super simple, and attachment is anything that you find hard to let go of, you find hard to like make sure you don't have it. So it's like the desire to have and the desire not to have, and almost worrying a little bit too much of whether you're going to have that or not. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it's basically it's hard to let go. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So like, you put my words in sentences very well. How would you say that?
No, I think you're doing an awesome job. It is. It's what you can't let go of. So whether it's a person, a situation, it could even be a thing that you're really attached to. I've seen that even energetically with objects. That like if you actually let go of a particular object, just because there's a lot of sentimental value, that if you actually let go of that, next thing you know, it's like something better actually comes along. So it really could be any of those things. But attachment is where we just can't let go. But we're talking about the energy of attachment. So that's when we talk about attachment, there's a specific energy that is applied to it where we're cording. Mm-hmm. There's a cord. Imagine like this invisible cord coming from you to another person, situation, or thing, right? And then we can get into this later, but we can actually draw energy from that person, situation, or thing, right? And then the way that I think about that is there's a whole like psychological aspect to that, but we can get into that. So what are the common things that you see, like when you're working with your clients, Jazmine, when it comes to attachment? What are the big ones?
The big ones I will say is specifically with relationships. Everyone wants to be attached with relationships, with how that person made them feel at one point, or just like experiences through relationships. But also, attachment to the past is one of the biggest ones, and specifically like traumas and things like that. When we go through those things, it's very easy to continue to live in that, and it's very easy to attach yourself to that emotion, that pain, and then kind of just become that. And I feel like that's what I see the most, is just being attached to the past, where it just really has no benefit to them anymore. So working with energy for you, what would you say is for you? What do you see the most often?
I would probably say one of the top things is an attachment to how they want something to turn out.
Oh, the future. Yes.
Yeah. So I love that you're bringing up the past, because people can definitely be attached to their previous identities and have a hard time letting go of that. Because if you don't drop that, it's going to be really hard for you to evolve and change into the future, right? The person who you're becoming. But we can also be attached to, I want this relationship to turn out a certain way, or I want this job or this amount of money to turn to turn out.
Yes.
Would you say you get that too? I would.
100%. It's just, I think for me that gets really frustrating on the other side, because you notice through your clients, they hook on the past and they hook on the future, and it's never now. And that, like, why is it so hard for us to be here right now? That's a very interesting kind of thing. So do you find ever a reason where attachment is a good thing?
That's a really good question. Let me think on that for a second, because my initial response, like what my body is actually saying right now, is no.
Yeah, that's what mine's saying too.
because the thing is, we have to also remember, like with quantum physics, with energy, when you're talking in those specific terms or that perspective, we have infinite possibilities. And we're right now, each of us are currently on a particular timeline. And every choice that we make will put us into a different timeline. Right? Or it'll go into where there's these set of possibilities over here. There's these set of possibilities over here. Depending on the choice that we make, we kind of branch off. Right? And it doesn't matter how small it is, whether it's me deciding to eat this particular meal versus this one, or choosing to have this conversation with this person or that one. So I would say, if you are really attached to, I have to have this right now, then you eliminate everything else that's out there. Now, I'm not saying you can't have a preference, right? It could be better. Now, I'm not saying that there can't be a preference. I'm not saying that, excuse me, if you have a craving for juice, that you can't have the juice. But what I'm saying, or your Starbucks. But the thing is, it's just, we have to remember, especially when it comes to the big things, that when we have to have things a particular way, then we're actually trying to tell the universe how to do it.
Exactly. Like we're smarter than the universe.
Right. So, which brings me to, oh my gosh, I have like so many questions I want to talk to you about and kind of get your feedback on it. So first, how would when you talk to someone, you can tell that they're really attached to something, a particular outcome or a person. What are is there specific things that you notice about their energy? Is there something specific that you notice about certain things that they say, or like how their mind is working or processing through something?
Yeah. So a lot of the times, for what I see is a lack of self-worth, of self-love, of searching for something missing in them. It all comes back to themselves and them trying to fill something that they think is not filled, and they're looking for in something else, whether it is a job or an outcome or the past or whatever it is. I feel like at the end of the day, it comes down to self-worth. Like, because no one wants to make the hard decisions, especially when it comes to attachment, because all the other, but there's so much more emotions that are involved with attachment. And so I think that's the messy part. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Now, what's curious is Miss Ryan said, is it human nature or is it conditioning? And the first thing that I honestly thought of, I feel like it is human nature because it's a survival mechanism growing up. It's not something I feel like we should stay in. So I do think that's where the conditioning part comes in. At one point, you have to be aware, acknowledge, and assess and change. But I think when we're born, it's almost a natural thing to happen. Like it has to happen. So what's your take on that part?
Well, if the attachment is having to do with survival, then I would say yes. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, a lot of the things that people are attached to derive from being in the survival mode.
Exactly.
And so, but the thing is that survival mode is also conditioned because of previous experiences, trauma.
Yes.
And, you know, they just, and like you said, they haven't stepped into the present or the now where they can get themselves into the other side of the coin, which is creative mode. Yes. Which is where we can co-create with the universe, and then where we can, it's a very fine line between attachment and manifestation, which is another question I want to get to in our conversation in a little bit.
I love that.
But I'm asking the question here of like, what things do you notice? Because a lot of times people don't realize that they are attached. They have this particular expectation of, especially other people is what I see a lot of. And they're trying to like figure out how to get them to do a particular thing. And I'm like, you can't. You know, I'm like, don't do that, you know? And so when it comes to being able to see like that they're actually in the attachment state, a lot of times they just, it's interesting. What I actually almost see is that they can't see what the underlying beliefs are.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yes. So let's see. So hold on. We have a comment here. Do you think on IG, do you see this, Jazmine? Do you think that's the main problem for a lot of things going on into your life? Are we lacking self-worth since this era is all about social media? It's a good question.
That is a good question. And that's not, it's like, this is why attachment is a little bit hard, because attachment is everything. You could be attached to anything and everything. So I think like with the social media thing, you're attached to other people's opinions, but that is a direct reflection on your self-worth. If you can't be authentically you, then you don't find yourself valuable enough to step into that power. Does that kind of make sense to that question?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great answer to that, because yeah, attachment, let me see how it's worded again. Do you think that's the main problem for a lot of things going on, you know, in your life, any issues? I would say yes, because we're attached to, when you talk about self-worth, either people are looking, and I see this a lot, people are looking for some recognition, they're looking for praise, they're looking for validation. All of that is definitely tied into self-worth. And a lot of that also stems from, trace the thread back to your conditioning as a child. What did you get? What did you not get? Right? And so so when you say the self-worth, that is a huge piece of it. But the attachment then is to the things that they need in order to fill that void that's external, like just outside of them, instead of figuring out how do I peel away some of these layers, these blocks that I have, so I can fill that for myself.
Exactly.
Right. And then anything you happen to get on social media or anywhere else, it's like, that's just kind of like the sprinkles on top, you know, it's just like, okay, you know, but you're not pining for it. Right.
And I think the biggest thing too, like with attachment, it's understanding that the universe has one constant thing, and that's change. And so we have to adapt, we have to learn, we have to flow with things. And what that means is understanding that you don't have anything. You don't forever is what I mean. You're not going to have your partner forever. You're not going to have your family member forever. You have to kind of go into life understanding that everything can be taken away from you today. So how are you going to live at that point? like, because for me, I think I've learned a lot about attachment this past year because I was really, 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 really attached to my family. They were my worth and everything. And learning to detach from them was, by the way, very painful. This is not an easy process, but when you detach from these people, you can learn to appreciate things on a different level than when you are attached. Because when you're attached, you have the emotions of fear, of what's going to happen, what's not going to happen. When you're open to flowing with life and being detached from everything around you, you have the ability to open the door to more joy and gratitude, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of brings me to the manifestation question you kind of had. So what was that question about?
That question was more of, so you know how like with manifestation, we're visualizing, we're feeling, we are trying to put ourselves into this, to the whoever it is that we want to be in the future. So how is it that we could still be not attached, but be able to manifest something that hasn't yet come?
You know what's interesting? I don't manifest that way.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I don't care what I have. I don't. So what I do when I manifest is just more based on emotions, and sometimes I'll see myself driving a nice car, or sometimes I'll see myself in a nice house, but I am automatic. I'm not attached to those things. For me, it's always the emotions behind it. So, and I've learned that people manifest different, and I never noticed I was the opposite of what majority of people do. So for me, I'm not attached to the future in any way, so it's hard for me to actually answer that question. I don't think I've ever been attached to the future because I didn't think I would live this long.
Oh, that's interesting.
So now I'm just like down for the ride. I mean, whatever happens, happens. So
that's a great way to live too. You know what I mean? Like there's so many things. Well, it's like you're talking to like a Virgo who's a total.
Yeah, I know.
Everything, you know?
I know.
I need to know. But the thing is, it's like there's so many like type A things that I've had to let go of in order to practice to practice non-attachment, and also kind of figure out like how do I balance this with manifestation? Because with manifestation, I do a lot of things where I picture myself kind of like when I used to train for races. Mm-hmm. I always pictured myself running faster. I would imagine what it would feel like to do that. Mm-hmm. I would imagine what it would be like to beat my previous time, what it would look like and feel like to cross the finish line. Mm-hmm. I mean, athletes do that, right?
Yes.
And so it's really not any different. Mm-hmm. And so I actually like doing that because then I can get myself into the feeling. Oh yeah. So regardless of if you do that or not, you said that you focus on the feelings. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's really the magnetizer, because thoughts are electric and feelings are magnetic. So we have an electromagnetic field and around us, that's the energy that we're exuding. And so when we are manifesting, if those two things are in alignment with each other, then that's when we can bring that into our existence. And so, and then that way we blend the both of them into the now. So that's kind of how I manifest. And so I kind of practice, this is what it's going to feel like, and this is what it's going to feel like. And but the feeling part is definitely the key.
But you know what's that's interesting though, I wonder if, because you know how manifestation is a big thing, what if people get attached to the word manifestation and expect that word to do all the work for them? So it's like even the attachment to words can hinder your ability to succeed throughout life, because yes, you can. What are we talking? What's the word?
Manifestation.
Thank you. Yes, we can manifest all we want, but if we're not taking the action to do those, does that make sense? To do those things,
absolutely,
then it's not going to come to fruition.
That was my hardest lesson when I learned about LOA. I was like, where's my money? You know, like I was like, where's my $1.5 million that I keep writing down?
Yes.
And I realized that I was like, oh my gosh, this is like law of attraction, but there's also part of the law of action, right?
Yes.
So the thing is, when you actually take certain steps towards the thing that you want, towards that vision, however it is that you're actually manifesting, when you take an action, that energy of that action reverberates out into the universe, therefore again bringing it back, because now you have begun to embody the feeling more and more because of the action that you're taking. So that's totally how it works, folks. You know, when it comes to manifesting, you actually have to demonstrate something that shows that you believe that thing is going to come, that thing is going to be here, and you're acting as if it's no big deal. No big deal. That's already my normal, and I already know that it's on the way. So no sweat, right?
So this is just a random question that kind of popped in my head. For you, what do you find to be like the most intriguing attachment? And I guess for an example, like for me, people like want to follow their dreams and they want to go do X, Y, and Z, but they're so attached to not living a certain lifestyle. Like they're so afraid of being poor that they won't go follow their dreams because they're attached to how they're supposed to live. So for like me, that's the most intriguing thing, because you won't follow your dreams because you're too attached to the way you're living. Like that's mind-blowing to me. So like, what's the most mind-blowing thing for you when it comes to attachment?
I would say that's probably towards the top of the list also, because that was a lesson that I had to gradually learn as I've been building my own business, doing healing. And so even though, I'm still a registered nurse part of the time, I mean, I know that I'm not going to be staying here or staying in that role in the future, but it's more along the lines of understanding that, so for everyone, this is a little bit different. Okay, how they're going to remove themselves from a particular job situation and move into something that they're so thrilled about. It's going to be different for everyone because the circumstances are different. It's not like you just magically drop whatever and then go for it. There has to be a plan. So that again requires action. So so I would say that is at the top of the list. I would say relationships, when it comes to attachment, relationships is another big one, because and this goes back to our topic, our conversation on relationships, which we could have 100 different conversations on. But when we have attachment in relationships, that can start to border on the codependency. But also too, we have to appreciate that your partner is on their own particular journey. And sometimes what I see a lot of is people get kind of nervous because especially when they start working with me and things start changing, they're afraid that the other person who isn't doing the same things, that they're not changing, they're not working on themselves, that they get a little bit nervous about that. They're like, oh my gosh, is this relationship going to last? Is this, like, what if, because I do talk about becoming not the vibrational match tends, that can change. So the thing is, you have to understand that you can't be attached to the outcome with that.
Of anything.
That's a tough one. That's a real tough one, because then you kind of have to brace yourself, but understand that other person, just focus on you, give that opportunity for that person to rise with you.
For real. Right? I hate when they're like, oh no, they're not going to do it. You don't know. You change. You change. Right. We all did it. So I do love that. Now, what for you has been the hardest thing? Because like for me, my main goal is to be happy. I don't care what I have to do. And so I just started coming to the realization of attachment, and I've been detaching myself from everything and anything. I feel like I'm no longer, you can go. I need to survive and be happy no matter what. So I am very open to change now. But the biggest attachment for me and kind of what set it free once I learned my lesson is family, specifically like siblings. And that just happened. So I'm just now experiencing this like freedom for the first time, and it's freaking amazing. But what was the hardest thing for you to detach from?
My previous identity.
That's what, yeah.
Yeah, it would be my previous identity. And that's just because, you know, like the previous religion that I was in, and everything was attached to that. It was all the friends that I had, because I really wasn't encouraged to like associate with people outside of the religion.
Yeah.
My family was in it, my son. And so when I had to give up one, when I knew that I had to leave one, that potentially meant everybody else. And that propelled me into the stage of like, oh my gosh, I don't know who I am. I don't like who I am or who I was. I didn't know who I was going to be yet. And then I was extraordinarily lonely. Like, you know, and which I wouldn't wish upon anyone. But the thing is, you kind of have to, you almost kind of have to have the breakdown. You have to have the breakdown in order to move into the next thing. So I see a lot of people during their spiritual awakening. A lot of my clients are in the midst of that. And so they go through these periods where it's like, oh my gosh, like maybe this person that I hung out with for a really long time, it's not the same. I don't feel the same around that person. You know, like, I don't know who I'm going to hang out with. There's no one else around me who is really doing anything like I'm doing, or they're not like an empath like me, or whatever the case may be, right? And I'm like, don't worry. Like, you're going to find other people. I said, if it happened to me, it's going to happen to you. And I'm like, this is kind of where, and then you have to turn into this person who's going to grow into the being comfortable with you. You have to be comfortable with you. And that's kind of where I realized I only felt comfortable because I had other people taking up space around me.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
You know, so that was hard. That was hard because I had to be okay with myself.
Yeah, that's for sure. Like, from my perspective in my family, it was super hard because like we just grew up thinking, oh, we're this tight-knit family and this and that, and then all of a sudden like you just open your eyes up to reality and you're like, oh, that was a gut punch. That was a gut punch. But
yeah,
like there's obviously like the reason we always talk about these things is because yes, they are super hard, but they're beneficial. So like for me, detaching from my family, and detaching does not mean letting go, doesn't mean like nothing like really bad. It just means understanding that they may not be in your life forever and you being okay with that flow. But overall, like what made me super happy when I started detaching was the freedom of knowing I was always going to be okay no matter what happened. So what did you feel that was positive from going through that? Because we can say, yeah, it's good for you. And yeah, we can say we've been through it. But if someone doesn't know what's the positive about it, why the hell would they even try?
That's a great question. You know, it took me a really long time to even get to the point to say that I'm okay. Like it was interesting when my first spiritual teacher, she was like, you have to remind yourself that you're safe. You know, and that was like, it was almost like a light bulb moment, but I was like, I almost didn't want to believe it because I was just like, I wasn't conditioned that way. Like I was conditioned that, oh my God, the world's going to end, and, you know, and like either God's going to kill you or you're going to, you know, be okay. But like you had to live a particular way. Yeah. And so I had to really deprogram from a lot of that. And I've seen other clients who, they weren't necessarily the same religion as myself, but they were from other very high mind control situations. And it's very similar. Everything is all about like, you're either going to be in survival or creative mode, you know? Yep. And so it was, I would say that was probably the biggest thing is when I finally got into that place of safety, like I can drop into safety, Then I would probably say after that, it was more like, oh my gosh, I'm so much stronger than I ever thought that I was. And
Yes.
so, and and I see that too with a lot of my clients when they start to kind of work through, in one issue after another, and they're kind of like in this different place where they feel like they can speak up for themselves, that they let go faster and faster of expectations and things that they previously would have been like. I always hear this a lot, like, oh, if this was me like 4 months ago or last year, this is what I would have done.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right?
Yes.
And so that's
time.
where you realize how strong you really are, and how evolved you have become, as a result of your spiritual journey. So yeah, that's what I would say.
You know what just clicked for me? Survival. There's a healthy way and a non-healthy way. Trying to detach and trying to learn, that is you trying to survive, but survive and thrive instead of just living. And I think that's the difference of being like the awareness part of attachment. When you stay attached, you're surviving, right? Because that's what you're used to, that's what you're going to do. But when you start breaking those attachments, you're just learning to survive in a happier vibration.
Yes, I would totally agree with that.
I'm like, why am I so obsessed with it? Because I just want to be happy and survive. Duh.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because Carolyn Mays says something. She's a medical intuitive, and she's been on Oprah like a gajillion times, but she talks about in one of her books about how if people are given a particular like terminal diagnosis, they will say, well, no, I want to live, right? But not everyone wants to heal. You might want to live, so you might want to survive. But what you're talking about is, I not only just want to survive, but I actually want to heal so that I can be happy.
Yes.
Right? So she says something quite similar, which you know what you said just triggered that, because that's the truth. I see that. I see that in healthcare all the time. People don't want to. They're not ready to die, but yet they're not actually ready to live.
Yeah, I think, and I'll just tell a quick story, because I like to tell stories because for everyone out there, a lot of the times you can see your own story and see where like things pop up for you. So for me, I lived such like a traumatic childhood, teenage years, 20s, that I did want to die. I was literally killing myself, and I never expected to live till 30. But I started my spiritual awakening around 25, 26. And then I got diagnosed with lupus, and it was so bad. I couldn't walk. I couldn't work. I was going to die is what it felt like. And lupus is a terminal disease. And I think in that moment, I just started crying in those few months, because I just realized I don't want to die. I just don't want to live like this. So what do I have to do to thrive? But I get so confused with people, because they're so attached with their pain. And I get it. I was attached with my pain for so long, but why would you not want to try to be happy? Why is it so scary to be happy?
That's a great question.
Because I'm a scared bitch. I will work.
Yeah. I think, and so here's one of the things too that I just kind of know from like the whole like neuroscience perspective. When people get really emotionally addicted to the drama and the fear that they live, because it affirms that identity. It affirms who they were, who they have been. And when you're suddenly happy, it's kind of like, this is unfamiliar to me. Like, I don't, what this feels good, but like, what if I lose it? And then people inadvertently end up doing something, saying something, getting into a situation that brings them back into a drama situation, or into a fear state or something like that. I see it all the time. Right. And so there's a physiological thing that actually happens in the body to do that. But when you actually practice happiness, when you practice being happy and not being attached to the drama, the negativity, the fear, the anger, and all of that, then you can actually give your body something else that it's going to feed off of instead of those things. And it's a whole physiological thing that happens in the body with actual hormones and things, because we actually have a lot more hormones of healing than we do of stress, but a lot of us are addicted to stress. So it is a puzzling thing, right?
It is.
It's like, why wouldn't we want to be happy? But the thing is, a lot of people don't know how to stay that way. And so they get afraid because it's like, I don't want to lose this. I'm much more familiar with being miserable because that's just easier.
And I think, like, for me, so if any of you ever come for a reading or decide to be my student, I don't like to hear excuses. If you choose to stay in your pain, then I feel like you have no right to complain about it for more than a certain amount of time, to be completely honest. And I think that can be really rough for some people to hear sometimes. Oh, you're not empathetic. Oh, whatever. Like, no, I am. I totally understand where you're at. But I'm going to tell you how it needs to be said. You have the option to change. Here's some. You might not know what that is. You might not know which first step to take. And I totally get that. Ask for help. Take those steps. Google is the best thing out there. But for me, if you choose to live a certain way and you complain about it, that is completely your problem. And I truly don't want to hear about it. Is that bad? Is that mean?
No, not at all. So the thing is that, and see, when I work with clients, one of my biggest things is let's get you to the point of becoming much more aware during the course of your day, right?
Yeah.
And so there's different tips and things that I give to my clients about that, because it's like, once you see it, it's pretty hard to unsee. And at that point, that's your total choice if you're going to do something different about it or not. And this is the whole not fun thing that people like hate and love when working with me, is that you got to take responsibility. And and I've worked with people who, now I'll be telling them to do one thing, and for several sessions they haven't done it, and then eventually they do, and they're like, I don't know why I waited this long, I don't know, but it's just like, once you experience the change, then you kind of go, okay, and then that's when people start taking their power back little by little, because it's like, I can't be with you 24/7, right?
I think that's what it comes down to. It's like, I can tell you what I feel, but I can't take the action for you. So please don't take me on the journey with you, because I have my own. I don't need anyone else's either. And it's different, like, when it's client. And I think that's why, like, some of my clients do love me, is because I will tell them straight up, like, this is your problem. This is what you should do. You could do. Here are the 3 different paths I see for you. The choice is up to you, but don't come back to me complaining when I told you already what to do. That's just a rule. It's just a rule. But that's just a rule I also have for myself. So maybe that's why I try to implement it with my clients too. Yeah. Because we're in control of our life, you guys. So take control.
Right. My question that I always say is, like, do you see what the energy is doing right now?
Really?
Do you see what the energy is doing? Do you see where you're giving it away? Do we see, do you see where you could be taking it back?
Yes.
And it's the thing is, the actions are often very obvious and very simple. And it's not, so it's, when we work with people, it's more just, it's to guide and to help point things out so that you can start doing that more and more on your own. And when you start doing that, then it's like, great. It's like, I don't want you to need me forever. No. I love everyone, but it's like, I want you to get to the point where it's like, I got this. I can see it for myself, and I know exactly what to do. I give you tools, and, and so reach for them. But it really is important to be very truthful about what's actually happening.
Yeah, I see that with my clients a lot. They'll, like, come back to me and they're like, thank you so much. You helped me so much. I'm like, girl, I just told you the truth. You did all the work yourself. I don't need to thank you. But I think that's what a lot of people miss, is there is truth out there. And only take what you resonate with. Don't listen to what you don't resonate with. But you should, if you resonate with something, then really like take it, listen to it, like look into yourself to see, because there are guides everywhere throughout your day. There are guides everywhere telling you how to be better, how to be kinder, what you could work on if you just pay attention. But yes, I think the biggest thing is just giving your client the awareness and the tools to help themselves. I love that.
Yeah, I do too. And the thing is, it's like, our clients are our teachers also, which is,
Yes,
it's a very reciprocal relationship. It's interesting. So when we're talking about attachment and our clients working through things, a lot of times that awareness then really breeds this insight in like what Ryan is saying, the aha moments with what they really are attached to. Where they are really corded to things. Because like I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, when you have this expectation and this want of it has to turn out like this, then you are just right away just sucking the life out of whatever the situation is or the people that are involved. And it's like you have to bring that back. You have to take that back. So that's, and that's something that I even am very mindful of too. Like every single day I close my eyes and I go, okay, I'm going to bring like anything I am corded to, like, I'm just going to go ahead and bring that right back to me.
Yes. 100%. I'll catch myself and like in the moment, my thoughts will start going somewhere. I'm like, I really don't care. I don't know why I'm thinking this. Let me take back my power and I'm going to go ahead and protect myself and go about my day. But I saw something where it said attachments exist in our mind and we must address them. So you guys, we live, this sounds really weird, in a projection essentially, and what we think is our reality. If you can change how we think, we can change our perception of our reality. And so attachments don't exist, or they do exist if you choose them to exist. So keep that in mind too. Mind is everything. You start but that goes with your energy. So what would you say is like, because people can't read their energy. A lot of them can't read their own energy. Like, obviously, it may be easier for us. So what do you feel are the key things to like look out for the signs of attachment?
So when it comes to someone who's like learning how to manage their own energy.
Yes.
So one of the things that I say is what subjects, topics, things, situations are predominating your thoughts majority of the time. If you can even pay attention for 1 hour,
I agree.
Then you can be like, okay, I'm thinking about this person majority of the time.
Way too much.
Or this particular thing right now is consuming me. Whatever situation that you're in, or if there's like a relationship issue or money issue, you can know that is where your energy is siphoning off to majority of the time. Just multiply that hour by how many hours in the day that you're awake, right? And so when you know then that what's consuming your thoughts is obviously going to consume your feelings, because your thoughts trigger the chemical of the feeling to be released within your body.
Did y'all hear that?
Which by the way, people, when you have an emotion, guess how long it lasts for? 90 seconds.
Yeah, I must say it's anything past that is your own suffering. Isn't that mind blowing?
It is. But the thing, so here's the rub is that, once you have a thought, it takes less than 7 seconds to have a thought that matches the thought that you just had. So when that happens and you're not stopping the thoughts, right? Because that is very, very difficult to do. You're just re-triggering those hormones to be released, and then hours later tomorrow you're still in the same mood. So imagine that, keep going and going and going, because someone isn't aware of what it is that they're doing, and now they're in a particular mood, a particular temperament. That's their disposition. So that's why it's so important to check in with what you're thinking about majority of the time.
Yeah, so I would say everybody who's listening to this, who has heard this today, do that as your homework today. We have homework every single day that we do that comes so natural to us, but you guys, when you're just beginning, it feels very weird. So today, pay attention to your thoughts. And when they are kind of overrunning into a direction you don't necessarily want them to go in, pay attention to them. They're telling you something for a reason, but then after you acknowledge them, you can let it go and then force yourself to think about something else, or force yourself to start saying affirmations. For me personally, if I go somewhere, I'll just say, I am safe, I am worthy, I am loved, I am good, I don't need to be connected to anyone at this point, blah, blah, blah. So for you, because we all suffer with things like this, our minds are powerful, no matter what level we're at. What do you do when you start having that waterfall?
Well, I like to, and this is just me, I like to trace things back. Like, is that, I typically ask myself, is that really, if I have a voice in my head that's like saying something, I go, is that really me? Or was that something that I heard growing up? Because, it's kind of like that, I don't know who said this quote, but it's like, be careful how you talk to your kids, because when they're older, that becomes their inner voice, right? So I tend to kind of go, okay, is this particular thought or what I'm saying to myself, is that really mine, or is that mom or dad's? Or somebody else, right? Like, you could have had someone say something to you and that alone was traumatic. So I'll trace it back, because then if I can discard it, if it really wasn't me, which most of the time it's not. So it's like, when I kind of go, okay, that's mom's thought. That's mom's thought of lack. That's dad's thought of judgment. That's whatever. And I go, okay, well, that's not me then. And then when I say that, then I go, well, what would I rather tell myself? And that's where you can interject something like an affirmation. How can I be more compassionate with myself? If I was being my own friend right now, what would I say? Right? And I give myself a little pep talk instead.
So essentially, like, if you guys just pay attention to like what she said, she detaches from the thoughts. Attachment, root of all suffering. If you can detach, you are not your thoughts. Whether you can put it somewhere or you can't, you are not your thoughts. And detaching from that will help you so much, especially in the awareness part. I love getting to the root of the problem.
Yeah, me too.
It's fast.
Me too. Right. Because again, energy is our thoughts, our feelings, and our state of consciousness. So when you're actually working with individual thoughts and being very intentional about replacing them, just like you said, you're getting to the root, and changes happen faster when you're working in energy, period. So and then you'll start to notice the shift. You'll start to notice like, oh, okay, you'll become more and more aware, because we have tens of thousands of thoughts per day.
Oh yeah, this brain is tired. This girl can think of some random stuff. But something just popped in my mind. What was it? Dang it, I hate when that happens.
So we're talking about the thoughts and changing the thoughts and the racing thoughts and the getting to the source a lot faster. Does anyone have any other questions regarding this conversation that we're having? This is a really great conversation, by the way, because attachment it's everywhere. And oftentimes we just oftentimes don't know unless we are actually willingly taking that look at it and kind of going, okay, what is this really doing to me?
I think a lot of people, and so I want to talk about really quickly just attachment with like traumas and things like that, because in order to detach, you guys, it's very important that you heal and then detach. Because if you detach, that energy's still there. And so keep that in mind. There are different aspects to attachment, and some things you have to heal from and grow through, and some things you just have to talk to yourself. So like for me, when I'm going through my detachment process, I talk to myself so much. It's a little bit weird. Do you find yourself doing the same? because of the emotions it brings up and the thoughts it brings up and maybe the worry it brings up or whatever.
Absolutely.
So does that make sense?
I will take my voice recorder, and I've had clients do this too, especially those who don't like to journal.
Mm-hmm.
I will take my voice recorder and I will talk to myself. I do it for different things. There are times even where I'll talk to certain people because there's certain things that, certain conversations that either at the moment can't be had, but I will still get it off my chest, because remember, the thoughts and the feelings that you're having about a person or past trauma is all energy that's still stagnant, locked somewhere, stored in the body. So when you're releasing it through the throat chakra and out of your mouth, kind of very similar with journaling, is you're taking all the energy that's in here and you're moving it outside of your body. Literally, that's actually what's happening, okay?
Yeah.
So when you're doing that, whether you're talking or whether you're writing things down, I mean, I've talked to my body. I have talked to...
I talked to her all day.
I've
You should
talked
have
to
seen me yesterday. I came out of my bathroom, I'm like, dang, I am cute. All right, keep going, sorry.
No, that's good. That's good, because like your body needs to heal it. I've apologized so many times to my body, right? And I'll like I said, I'll talk to specific people, right? And so when you do that, then you're getting out all that stuff that has been locked in, and you can, as you're doing that, you can slowly begin to just release that attachment. So Ryan says, can one be attached to being detached? Does that make sense? Can one be attached to being detached? In what way do you mean being detached then? Do you mean just not, because people can think of detachment in particular ways. So sometimes I like to use the word non-attachment, just because people might think of detached as being like, I'm just not caring, I'm just not, I'm not going to be either like engaged or just like maybe just not get, like that. So Ryan, if you can answer that one, what do you mean by being detached?
Yeah, so I think again, like what we said earlier, being detached isn't not committing to a relationship or not enjoying life or not building relationships and friendships like that. I think that I think detached, when it comes to this like term, like what we're talking about, is more of just the knowing that nothing is yours. And I think there is no overdoing that. Because nothing is yours. You shouldn't be attached to anything. But that doesn't mean you're not. Yes, I'm thinking too hard.
It's okay. It's okay.
But I don't like simply terms, I don't think you can be attached to being detached.
Right.
Because there's nothing you should be attached to.
Right. Because you can't take it with you, right? If
Ever.
When we transition, you don't take anything with you. And if you fully cross over, and you actually fully cross over to the light, as they like to say, then you realize, oh yeah, nothing was ever really mine.
Nothing.
So when, and it's so interesting. So what popped into my head when we were talking about manifestation before, not wanting anything brings everything.
And I think that's my vibe of manifestation. I'm like, I don't care what comes my way. I just know it's going to be good, and that's it. I trust the universe. Whatever's good is meant for me.
Right. And it's going to come.
So as a medium, and from experience, grief, death, attachment. How does someone teach someone that it's okay that someone dies? Like, everyone's so attached that this person's supposed to be here forever. And when someone dies, it's like they can't let go because they're still attached to that person instead of, does that make sense? Grief, I find to be one of the biggest emotions when it comes to attachment.
That's a really tough one. Yes. I'm gonna say at the core of that has to do with what you believe about passing, about transitioning, or about death. Okay, because I've seen people attached to their grandparents, and their grandparents pass. Well, guess what? How much longer did you expect them to live? I'm sorry,
I know.
And you never want to seem callous or anything.
I know.
But so here's the thing, because I grew up, because of my religious context that I grew up in, death was like, that was it. There was no, your spirit goes off, that kind of thing. Like but the thing was, I never really believed that, because I always had experiences. So when I left that and was on my spiritual journey, I heard so many different ways of looking at the afterlife that I really had to go, okay, what beliefs out there resonate with the experiences that I have actually had? And so it's a tough one, because it depends on the person's life experiences. But I always knew that death wasn't the end of everything.
Yeah.
And so when I started to hear different spiritual teachers talk about how it's just another phase that we're in, and we can choose to reincarnate. We go through a life review. All death is death by choice, because there's choice points too, that we only came here for certain experiences, and we have exit points that we can choose from. So when I heard all these different things, it's like, well, those things tend to resonate more with me than what I grew up with. And when you can start to shift the beliefs then that you have around death, not saying that you're not going to grieve, not saying you're not going to be sad, not saying you're not going to miss someone, but you kind of go, okay, in the bigger scheme of things, this is a part, this grief that I'm experiencing and this person's passing is a part of the bigger picture. And so it's never easy, no matter what, but that has actually helped me.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. That's helped me a lot too. Experiencing death so young, you really just try to figure out life. What's the point of it if we're all going to die? So that's something I've definitely dove into. But and I don't want to get into anyone's super personal business, but I do know someone who has lost a lot of people in her life. And there's been one recently, the past 2 years, someone passed away. And I asked her, because she has still such a hard time with it, and she's experienced death multiple times. So through my eyes, I'm like, you should be a pro at this by now, understand the emotions, they're okay, whatever. And I asked her, and I was like, what keeps you so attached to the sadness, the grief, everything that's holding you back? And she goes, I think it's just the person. So how would you go about talking to someone who feels it's the person and not necessary? Because I feel like it's the same, me and you are on the same vibe. It is kind of the belief. It is knowing and trusting the process. But when someone's so focused on the person and that grief of attachment to the grief, how do you help her through that?
So when you say the person, meaning that they're just attached to the person?
Yeah, so say her grandfather died, and it's been a couple of years now, and I asked, so what's going on? You've experienced death before, you kind of know what to expect.
Yeah.
And she said, I just miss the person, which is understandable, but you're still attached to the grief for a reason. And I'm curious what you feel like that reason would be if she does believe in something else.
So, this is where I would be asking a number of questions. Do you think your grandfather would still want you to feel the way that you do?
Yeah.
If he was here and saying, and would talk to you about this, what do you think that he would want for you? So there's that, but I would also be asking, again, the context of the beliefs about the connection. Is so here's the other thing that I do in my energy healing sessions is I will also remove the energy of disincarnate beings, so basically people who've passed on from the energy field. And I don't mean that you no longer have a connection to your grandfather, but like I will remove like anything either negative, holding you back, or attachment style.
That's powerful
to the person. So anyway, so yes. so I do that also. So you still have the connection, but it doesn't feel like they're stuck somewhere in you that you feel. Yeah.
Yes.
So there's,
okay.
So there's that too.
So that makes sense. That just clicked for me because yes. So I was grieving for a long time. So I understand that, and I think that maybe that was answering my question too for like myself. Well, after 6 years of grieving, like I started getting tired. And so one day, before I knew I was a psychic medium, I was listening to a song that reminded me of my friend. I was crying in my car on the way to a job I didn't really like, and I didn't want to be alive. And I was just sort of punching the steering wheel. And I just remember I was like, I need you to leave me alone for a little bit. Like 6 years, I felt you around me. I don't know why I feel you around me so strong, but like I can't move on and everyone's moving on without me. And from that moment on, I felt it's not the disconnection, but it is. It's like that person just took a step back and I could breathe and figure out who I am without being attached to that person.
Yeah.
That makes sense, Rosalyn.
So it makes sense, yes. And I mean, I can't even begin to tell you how many people's grandmothers I have like cleared from the field, and there's just heaviness or crying or whatever. And it's just like, but the thing is, it's okay. It's okay to have the breathing space there when you clear someone else's energy. Because remember, the energy doesn't go away. So just because someone transitioned. So the thing is, it's important to have that.
I think you really just nailed everything I think I wanted to say. So like, again, I didn't know I was a psychic medium during that time. So everything happened so natural for me. I knew to tell her to leave me alone. I knew to clear my energy without really knowing. Yeah. So if you don't know, or if you aren't a psychic medium or what energy healer, whatever it is, how can you go about doing that? Or should you just go see an energy healer or a psychic? Like how would a normal person go about that? Normal.
I would say you probably should seek help if you feel an attachment. It's one of those things where it's like, I mean, traditional Western medicine is probably not going to tell you to do anything unconventional like that.
Some psychotic medicine.
So the thing is, I would say, seek help from someone who has experience in this particular arena, because it is purely spiritual. Yeah. I mean, and to be honest, every problem is an energetic problem. So it is. So that's why I would say seek outside assistance. If that's what you're experiencing.
And for me too, I guess for like what I would do if seeking help does make you nervous, or that's something you're not ready for, we totally understand. It may not be your time. What I would say is say it out loud. Ask for your energy to be cleared. Ask for your loved ones to kind of just take a step back and let you figure out who you are and what you need, and then we can work on that connection again. Like, because when I asked my friend to leave me alone, it was so terrifying, because as a person grieving, you're like, I don't want to forget you. I hope you're not mad at me for not wanting to connect anymore. But they're not. They understand that you need some room, and then they can come back. Just say their name. Think about them. They're right there.
Yes, they will respect your space. They'll respect your space because we're the ones with the physical body.
Yes.
Right, and they get that. So it's okay to say those things aloud. Because years ago I had a psychic medium say, "Oh my gosh, there's like 100 people around you," and I felt suffocated. It was weird. I'd be alone in my office, but I felt like suffocated. She's like, "There's so many secrets around you," and so because I
have a lot of history.
I was and that was really open, but didn't know how to work with that. And so she was like, you just tell them, if you're going to go into your bathroom, especially where you need privacy, she was like, just say no one else comes in here. No one else is allowed in here, you know, except like your main spirit team or whatever the case was. And so I practiced that. And then there were times too, like, and again, this is just me being an energy healer. I would physically take my hands, and if I felt something in a particular area of the room, I would use my hands and I would kind of like, almost like putting my, I'm leading you to go. Like I put my arm around your shoulder, I'm going to escort you outside to the back door. And I would open the back door and I would do this kind of thing, you know? So, I mean, there's different ways of doing it. It depends on what's currently going on, but just ask. You know, I mean, again, it is one of those things where you're not crazy. You're not, you know, because I get that too. You gotta think I'm crazy, but this is what I feel. And it's like, no, you're totally fine.
Like, that's so normal. What are you talking about? I do that every day. What are you saying?
And so, there's different ways of doing it. But again, when it comes to attachment, it's the more that you detach or not attach to anything, the better off you are.
100%.
So any last questions or anything? This was a really great discussion. We covered a lot. So I hope other people who can finish watching the replay and stuff like that too. But any other questions from any of the other platforms or anything else, Jazmine, that you wanted to touch on?
I think for me, that I want to just remind people is attachment may not be the first thing on your step to do, okay? I feel like attachment may be a little bit more advanced in the healing process because you have to be aware of so much other things first. So don't rush into anything you are not spiritually, emotionally prepared for. Yes, we can have the thought, oh, I'm going to go detach from everything. It is very emotional process. So if you need to heal through other stuff first, please do so. Like, when we talk about things, the things we have talked about are actually really, really hard to do. So baby steps are better than no steps, but take the baby steps. You don't need to sprint to the finish line just because you heard an hour of us talking. So keep that in mind.
And Joanna's asking, how do we strengthen our mediumship skills?
Oh, love that. Meditation, first of all. You need to be meditating once a day, twice a day, at least for an hour a day. Meditation, number one. Number two, in my personal opinion, to make you the best medium ever, being present. You need to know your senses. What are you seeing every day? The details of it. Like if you close your eyes, you should be able to describe every little thing that you saw in the room kind of thing. You need to be smelling every little thing. You need to be touching every little thing. You need to be as present as possible. So start with those two, meditation and present, and you'll see lots of growth happen for you. Along with healing. Healing is a must, by the way. It's a vibrational energy. You can't be here and being a medium and living a vibrational life down here. It just doesn't match.
She says she meditates daily. Time to up my time.
Just like you don't have to do a lot, but I'll say an hour gives you really good time with the other world, and the more time you spend in the other world, the easier it is to be in both worlds at the same time.
Like my meditations range anywhere from 20 up to an hour 15. It depends on the day and my schedule.
Depends how I feel.
So I would say the exercises you were talking about, being really present, is really important. One of the other things that I know that I do, especially, is it's called spatial referencing. This I got from my mentor's mentor, where it's like if you close your eyes and you're focused on a particular body part, and Dr. Joe Dispenza also does a meditation too, where it's very similar. But like you're focusing on a particular body part, and then I also focus on the space around that body part. And then I will focus on an object in the room, either with my eyes closed or open, and then focus on all the details, like noticing everything. And then I bring it back to my body, and then I'll go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. It's a really interesting exercise. And I remember this. I did this once for like 30 minutes, and I had some like meditation music on, and then it was interesting is that by the time I ended up bringing the energy back to a body part, it was almost like the energy was like smacking against my body. Like,
Oh, wow.
I ended up like actually twice my body would go back because I felt like I brought so much energy back.
Yeah.
And so when you are, and what I'll also do too is like, if I get up and I'm walking to the kitchen, I'll be like, I'm walking to the kitchen. I'm walking to the kitchen. I'm walking to the kitchen because usually we're thinking about something else, right?
Yeah.
But to keep me where I am, and you know, and usually when I work with my students, you know, when it comes to like talking about quantum physics and space time, we're moving through space through time. Like you can't have time without space. So when you actually are doing something like that, where you're actively going, this is what I'm doing as I'm doing it, you are fully here. None of your energy is spread out.
Yep,
so the whole point
sense.
of doing that is bringing everything
your mind,
back.
body, and soul is right there.
Is right here, and then you'll be able to access all of those abilities, so that way you can practice that.
Use them. Yeah, I love that. That is interesting. That's totally different. That's super cool. I like
Try it. Let me know what you think, because I personally really, really love that one, because then I really feel like I'm fully in.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, like I tried to do it while you were explaining it, and I got a little sick because it is the energy coming back. I'm like, whoa, that's a little too much. I'm gonna need you to take a step back. But it's interesting because even when you said focus like on a body part, I started focusing on the nose, and then like going back and forth almost made the nose get bigger and almost made me start seeing a face. And then, so that's very intriguing. I may practice that some more.
Yeah, it's actually really, really cool.
That is intriguing. I'm not gonna lie.
So, but yeah, excellent question. Anybody else? Thank you so much for joining today, because this was such a great discussion. I love it.
Yes, I had so much fun talking with you.
So, okay. But we'll be back in 2 weeks, so keep an eye out for our next discussion. So we'll be posting that. But thank you everyone for joining live or on the replay, and go hit up Jazmine's Facebook page. She does readings how many times a week? Like, is it
lives? I do lives once to twice a week, depending on my schedule.
Okay.
But I do try to do it at least once a week. Yeah.
So she's fantastic. She is on point. I've had readings from her, and she's totally on it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So go hit up her page, like and share. You know, and then we'll see you guys next time.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
I love you.
Love you.